Okay, so what I want to do is teach you about craniosacral therapy, because when I first started learning craniosacral therapy, I found it was just absolutely fascinating and an incredibly powerful technique. And I've actually got an online, if you look at the links below, if you're interested in studying this online, I've actually got a bundle, a discounted bundle on craniosacral therapy, another course on craniosacral manipulative techniques, and another one on craniosacral therapy for your pets, for cats and dogs. So before we go there, I want you to understand, where did craniosacral therapy come from? What is the history of craniosacral therapy? And that's what this is all about. So this is from my course. I'm going to show you. Remember to subscribe, like, you can comment in the comment section below, and say in the description, you can have a look, get these discounted bundles and save a ton of money and start learning online. All right, let's have a look at what is the history of craniosacral therapy. All right, so to give you a bit of a history, right, so where did all of this originate from? So we've got to go back to the early 20th century. In the United States of America, there's an osteopathic college founded by the founder of osteopathy named Andrew Stills. Right, so there was this student, William Sutherland, a final year osteopathic student who was studying there, and every day he'd walk past this sort of cabinet that had a disarticulated skull in it. Disarticulated means it was all pulled apart at the sutures. Now, how did they do that? Well, interesting enough, what they used to do to disarticulate them back in the day is they would turn the skull upside down, the foramen magnum where the spinal cord comes out, okay, they'd fill it up with beans, then they'd top that up with water, put a plug in it, and then over time, the beans would swell and it would disarticulate the skull. Rather clever, right? Right, back to William Sutherland. Right, so of course they were all taught that skulls are fused, there's no movement at the sutures. But he wasn't convinced. He was like, why would these sutures be designed? Now, to quote him, they look like gills of a fish designed for respiratory motion. In other words, why would they be designed like these sutures? They had different looking sutures. They looked like they were built or designed for movement. Right, so he started doing some tests. So he got himself a leather helmet and then started putting clamps on his head at different cranial bones and seeing what happened. And by golly, things happened. He would get pain in some parts of the body that affect him emotionally, psychologically, and his wife would write them down. Now, as this developed more and more, he started working on clients and medical students, and he discovered this thing, which is a rhythm, a pulse that was separate from the heartbeat. It was separate from breathing and is known as the craniosacral rhythm or cranial rhythmic impulse. And it is a pulse that he found that was the same with just variations of asymmetries, but very similar in speed with all of the people that he would treat, okay? And he was getting incredible results with his patients, with his clients, and also on himself. And this is where what was originally known as cranial osteopathy. So that brings us now to 1970. Now, Dr. John Upledger, who's probably the most famous person when it comes to cranial work, because he was the one that coined craniosacral therapy. Before that, it was called cranial manipulation or cranial osteopathy. Now, Dr. John Upledger went and studied osteopathy at exactly the same school as William Sutherland. He graduated, then got a very busy practice. One day, a friend of his who's a neurosurgeon asked him if he would assist in surgery. He goes in there, and much to his amazement, when they're looking at the protective covering, which is a duramater, which you'll learn about, which covers protects the spinal cord, he noticed there's movement, like a rhythmic movement. He's absolutely flabbergasted. And he goes, wait, what did they say back when I studied osteopathy? There was some rhythm, some cranial rhythmic impulse. What? So he goes back to his book. He starts studying, starts learning techniques, starts practicing on people, especially kids with autism, and starts getting the most incredible results doing this. Now, what he called it was craniosacral therapy. That's where you know it from Dr. John Upledger. So then he also thought, I can teach my assistants. So he starts teaching his assistants. So he was the one that brought it mainstream, okay? So because before that, to study these cranial techniques, it was just in the realm of you have to study osteopathy to study this. But he went, no, I can teach. That's why dentists, doctors, massage therapists can learn this mainly in part from Dr. John Upledger. He brought this really mainstream. So that's why people all around the world can study that, and also, just like you will see, getting incredible results. So that's where it comes from. William Sutherland And the two main characters are William Sutherland and Dr. John Arbledger.